Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the governor elections in 2022, including the two in 2021, and giving my updated predictions for them. Now, I haven't actually done one of these since the end of May. I think it was May 25th to be exact. And it's been over a month and a half since then. So I thought that now would be a great time to do an updated version of those governor election predictions. So as always, we will start off with the safe states. There are 5 Democratic governors not up for re-election. That is Washington, Kentucky, Louisiana, West Virginia, North Carolina, and then the Republicans have Utah, Montana, North Dakota, Missouri, Mississippi, Indiana, and that is actually it. And the Democrats have got Delaware as well. So the safe states for the Democrats are going to include California, the state of Hawaii, the state of Illinois, the state of New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, the state of New Jersey, the state of Maryland. I'm going to put as a safe state. You got Peter Franchot running for the Democrats, and then you've got the lieutenant governor, who is a Republican, running for that party. He is nowhere near as popular as Larry Hogan is, who's not even that popular to begin with. Peter Franchot won by like 50 points in 2018 in the controller election, so he'll be able to win quite easily. Now, the safe seats for the Republicans are going to include Alaska as well as Wyoming. Actually, I'm probably going to add Colorado to the list of a safe state for for Democrats. I do think it's a state that they'll probably win quite easily. Republicans have also got South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I think Greg Abbott will probably win by just over 10 percentage points. He won by 13 percentage points in 2018 when nobody was really paying attention to the race. He'll probably win by quite a substantial amount in 2022 as well. Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina. Even though Joe Cunningham's running, he's not going to make it very close. And that is probably going to be all of the safe Republican states as well as Idaho. So 18 safe seats for the Republicans, including, of course, the 7 that aren't up for re-election. Then 15 for the Democrats, including the 5 that aren't up for re-election in Washington, Washington, Louisiana, North Carolina, Delaware, and Kentucky. Republicans have Utah, Montana, North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, and West Virginia. So, getting into these likely margin states, I think first for the Republicans, usually I start with the Republicans, but this time I actually started with the Democrats. But going back to the likely margin states for Republicans, I think first Iowa's going to be a likely Republican state. Now, Kim Reynolds isn't that popular, and Democrats do have a couple of decent candidates they could run, including Rob Sand, but I think at the end of the day, Iowa's just too far to the right in terms of its politics. Trump won it by 7 points. It's really shifted to the right since Obama won it by 6 points in 2012. And I think that given that it's probably going to be a year in which Republicans do quite well, they'll probably win this state quite easily. I also think Ohio is going to be a likely margin state. Now, of course, the current governor, Mike DeWine, does have a challenger. I do think that he probably will end up surviving the primary, and in the general election he should win quite easily, but you never know what will happen. Florida, I also think, is a likely margin state. I think in my last prediction I actually had it as a lean margin state. I am putting it as likely Republican now. Ron DeSantis, it looks in very strong position for re-election. The polls have had him up by very substantial margins, and while I do think it'll tighten slightly from what the polls are showing, which are, of course, polls that, one of these polls had Trump up 13 points. They now have DeSantis up, I think it was about 13 points as well, or something like that. I think Charlie Crist is going to end up being the nominee for the Democratic Party. He'll bring it to around a 6-point race. Maybe it ends up getting a little bit closer. Maybe it's a little bit more than 6 points. We will see what happens. But overall, right now, I'm putting it as a likely margin state. Now, those are going to be all of the likely margin states for the Republicans. For the Democrats, I think Oregon's going to be a likely margin state. This is an open seat. Some of these races end up being, quite a bit closer in Oregon. And while Republicans haven't won any races here in decades, I do think that they will be able to get a little bit closer. Now, Connecticut's also a state which has had closer gubernatorial elections, but I do think the Democrats are going to prevail here with Ned Lamont, who has become a lot more popular because of COVID. He actually may end up winning by a safe margin, but we will see what happens. I'm also going to put Virginia as a likely margin. I think as of now, Terry McAuliffe would win by just over 5 percentage points, which does push it into the likely column. He's running against Glenn Youngkin, who's really not run a good campaign. But Terry McAuliffe, of course, is a more moderate figure. He was governor before. That does aid him a lot, and he's probably, at the end of the day, going to end up winning by quite a comfortable margin. New Mexico is also a state I'm putting in the likely margin for the Democrats. You have Michelle Lujan Grisham, who is in this seat, who has had some scandals, I think. They're not major scandals, but there's certainly things that aren't going to help her. I think, though, New Mexico is still a blue state, and I think she'll be able to win by quite a reasonable margin. In the state of Maine, I think this is also a likely margin state. Of course, you had the former Governor Paul LePage running, but he was elected in 2010 and 2014, two Republican wave years, and he never got a majority of the vote. He's an overrated candidate, and while he will make it closer than some other candidates will, he's not going to end up winning. Maybe this pushes down to a lean margin, but as of right now, I think it's a likely blue state. Now, as for the lean margin states, there are a number of states here. First, Kansas, I think, is a lean margin. Now, this is, Laura Kelly's not going to be a pushover in this race. She is going to have a good campaign. She's going to have a good fight. But Kansas, I believe, is just too red. Things are just too partisan now. She just got too lucky in 2018. I think that it's not going to be enough to end up winning, and she's going to lose to probably, I think the lieutenant governor said that he may be running. I'm not exactly sure about that, but at the end of the day, I think that she will lose by a lean margin. And that is actually the only lean Republican state. Now, for the Democrats, I do think Minnesota is a lean margin state. I could see Tim Walz winning by just above 5 percentage points, but as of right now, I think he wins by around 4 to 5 percentage points. I think that's a realistic scenario that we could see. I also think Gretchen Whitmer will win by a lean margin, which is much less than what I thought so originally, but there have been some polls showing it a little bit closer. Though again, nobody significant is really announced against Gretchen Whitmer, so we will see what happens. But as of right now, I think that's a lean margin state. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races that are going to be within 2 percentage points according to my prediction. I will start with the state of Arizona, which I do believe is tilt Republican here. You've got the state treasurer running for this race against the Secretary of State, Democrat versus Republican, who that's probably going to end up being what the general election is. This will be a very interesting race because Katie Hobbs has got a lot of increased name recognition due to what's happened surrounding the election. That could be used to her advantage in terms of fundraising, in terms of getting out the vote. Combining that with Mark Kelly doing quite well could actually pull her over the finish line. But I think as of right now, she is favored to lose. But this could easily change, which is why I do have it as tilt Republican. I also think Georgia is a state that's going to go tilt Republican. Georgia is a very interesting state. Because you have Brian Kemp here, who has a primary challenger in Vernon Jones. He's not that popular with Republicans, but I do think he probably will be able to win the primary. I think if Vernon Jones wins the primary, he will lose the general election, but I do think Brian Kemp will survive the primary narrowly but comfortably. In the general election, I think it'll be very narrow against Stacey Abrams. But this race is, again, like Arizona. This could go either way. I think that Wisconsin is another tilt Republican state. Now, this is an interesting thing because Tony Evers, while he's not that unpopular, you've got the Wisconsin state legislature, which is just so heavily gerrymandered against him. It's just impossible to get things done. That's going to be a liability for Tony Evers, and we will see who runs against him. Maybe someone like Mike Gallagher does. Maybe if Scott Walker runs again. We don't know what's going to happen. But as right now, I just think with the national environment, the legislature, the approval ratings, it's going to be difficult for Tony Evers to win. So that's 25 races for the Republicans that they've won. But for Nevada, I'm going to put tilt Democrat. For Pennsylvania, I'm going to put that tilt Democrat, and for New Hampshire, I'm going to put that tilt Democrat, because I guess I can first just go in reverse order, starting with New Hampshire. I'm assuming Chris Sununu is going to run for Senate. If he runs for governor again, safe Republican, but if he does run for Senate, actually, I just realized I made a huge mistake. Many people are going to be talking about this in the comments, but I just completely forgot that Vermont and Massachusetts, of course, have Republican governors. You will see that if you scroll to the end here. I just completely forgot about that. Of course, their senators are Democratic, and they're safe Democratic in 2022. I just forgot that their governor races are, of course, Republican, but those races are both safe Republican, just for anyone that asked. You've got Phil Scott in Vermont, you've got Charlie Baker in Massachusetts. Those are both safe Republican races. But getting back to New Hampshire, of course, in New Hampshire, you've got Chris Sununu, who I just said I'm assuming he's going to run for Senate. If he does run for governor, safe Republican. You have another candidate, maybe like Kelly Ayotte, who runs for governor. She could do quite well. but I think that Democrats will probably end up running someone like Chris Pappas, who could be a decent candidate for governor, which is why I'm putting that race at tilt Democrat. I'm also putting Pennsylvania at tilt Democrat because you've basically got Josh Shapiro, who's going to end up being the governor at this point. You've got Doug Mastriano running for Republicans, who would get absolutely wiped out by more than a tilt margin, but just in general, the seats in the GOP in Pennsylvania isn't that great at running statewide candidates. Of course, they've got Pat Toomey, but he's retiring. They ran terrible candidates in 2018. They ran a bad candidate in 2014. And I don't think that they're going to be able to win this race as of now. But of course, it's a tilt margin, so that could change. And then finally, the state of Nevada, where you've got Steve Sisolak. This is going to be a close race. Republicans do have an opportunity in Nevada, but I do think that at the end of the day, Steve Sisolak will end up pulling away. So besides the mistake I made with Vermont and Massachusetts at the beginning, this is what the map's going to look like. 27 Republicans, 23 Democrats. This is what I think the map will look like. Of course, things will change. I'll continue to update this map. But overall, I've got Wisconsin flipping. I've got New Hampshire flipping. I've got Kansas flipping. I've got Maryland flipping. And any other races that I can't tell off the top of my head right now. But overall, this is what I think the map will look like. But again, things can change. If you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments below, and I will be sure to reach out to you with my thoughts. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys later.